Ryan was my first boss. You guys know that?
No.
No, I didn't know that. You worked at ATS?
It was me, Ryan, and Adam. We're the only three. I sat down for the first like interview process, and it was those two. And he's like, "You're hired. I've done my research." That was all. I like came ready with like a bunch of shit, and he's just like, "You're hired. You're ready."
When was this?
Sophomore year of college.
Sophomore year of college, and you interviewed at ETS to be a trainer.
Yeah.
And was that like your first gig?
Yeah. Well, I worked at my high school for a little bit, but
Got it. This is like the first one.
First like real internship. Yeah.
How many gyms did they have at that point?
It was just the one. That's why it's crazy. It's crazy. It's like
they have what, 12, 13 locations now?
I think it's 16. I thought that's what they said.
Christ.
Yeah, well, we're doing 15 podcasts with them. That was
one for each.
One for each one, and they might have expanded.
I think they just opened. I think they just teased their 16th. I think is what it was.
Got it.
Wow. So that makes sense.
It's freaking crazy.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Well, Austin, dude, it is amazing to have you back on the Back Pocket. I think it's been 2 years.
It's great to be back. 2 years for a solo one.
We were with for solo.
Dowdle, and we had
that was specific to Dowdle's run.
Yep.
And then you were it was us three kind of just navigating.
Dowdle's mind in there, which is
yes
always the best part of my day is navigating his mind.
Yeah.
You take a personal responsibility navigating Mark Dowdle's mind.
I just find it enjoyable because I'm like I feel like he has a similar mind to me. So like navigating it, it's like, all right, I kind of know where to turn here.
Right.
I kind of know what's happening.
And I really like, that was by far my favorite podcast that we did last year in 2020. The Mark Dowdle run recap.
Ended with the poem.
Yeah. Ended with the poem, dude. That was just unbelievable. 4 minutes, baby.
Mark texted me the other day, just out of the blue. Speaking of like navigating his mind, so Dowdle goes, "Why do we think the world we are creating are of any importance? The worlds we are creating. We put so much weight on how our actions impact other people, ... at times, ... way more than we should. Why do we do that?"
I got a very similar text.
You got the similar one?
Similar text. And it was late. It was late at night.
It was 10 o'clock at night.
And I looked at him like, what the fuck?
Same.
What are we doing?
But then I felt obligated to give a decent response, and I'm sitting there like laying in bed ready to go to bed, and I'm like, all right, what do I got? And I just gave him, because giving someone else life will ultimately give you life when you least expect it. The more depth inside our actions, the deeper the impact. We have that gift. It'd be a shame not to use it. All right, so that was a good response. Yep. And then he immediately goes, he tries to counter and press me, and he goes, "It sounds like in depth we find meaning, and with it comes a whole lot of suffering. It'd be a shame not to look that pain in the face and say, I'm here." Opening ourselves up and investing in what we inevitably bring us a lot of joy will also bring us pain. It takes a lot of courage to be willing to accept and understand that both will come with that openness. Just like insane.
And to think that like the only thing that goes through my brain is like, damn, what salad mix am I going to have tonight?
But like it's powerful to have people like that in your life, you know, like you surround yourself with like, I got a bunch of like 20-year-old goofballs that I train at the gym, and like you have that side of you. It's like the kind of like yang side of you of it's fun, goofball, like that's a part of you. And then you also have somebody that's able to draw you back into like kind of the deeper side of the world. And I think you need to find the balance between those two. So you can't be the goofball all the time, but you also can't be the hardo all the time. And finding that balance between the two, I think, is where like the skill set comes in. Like how do you balance those two and kind of navigate life in that way?
Yes, it comes back to the moderation, full force. Like you have to have that intensity on both angles, like the intensity of the discipline and like trying to find deeper meaning in almost everything because it's super fun, but then doing it with an attitude of like, whatever my outcome here is, it's not the end of the world. Like I'm not trying to like change the world, and have the humility behind it, like to bring yourself back down, you know, like it doesn't need to be so intense and so in depth.
And I think it helps with your message too. Cause that's something like my brain works. Like I talk about like the way Dowdle's brain works, where it's like, it's those deep text messages. It's those things all the time. Like when I'm at a party, I was thinking about this the other day. When I'm at a party, like I don't enjoy the party itself. I sit there and think about like watching people. It's like, oh, they're saying this because this is how they're conditioned, and this, you can tell like this is their background and this is what they're going through, and you're like, okay, that person is going through something. That's what, like, that's how my brain works. And you can't always, I've noticed this the past couple of years, and coaching has helped a ton with this. Like, you can't always be there. Like, if you're always in that mindset, you're never going to get your message across, which is hopefully something deeper. Hopefully it does change the world. Hopefully that's something that you want to do, but you got to be able to formulate that message and kind of meet people where they're at. And working with 19 to 20-year-olds like that's helped a ton.
Dude, yeah. I think about my construction job when you mentioned that, just because it's interesting to connect with someone that you normally would never try to connect with. So like I'm running crews of like 20 to 30 people who are strictly Latino, and like every morning at 4 a.m. I get up and I have to give like a 20-minute spiel. It's great stage time first and foremost, but like learning to communicate and like get them to buy in is like, it's the same type of mannerisms and the same type of like core skills as like you would try and get your 19 and 20-year-olds to buy in. Now, granted, they're goofballs and my guys are also goofballs, but they're total opposites of the spectrum. I think it's interesting to play the game a little bit. Like, it's all, and for me and to a certain degree, it's just a likability thing.
Well, and it's being able to like see that person's background, I think, is super powerful too, because that's something I just writing about and thinking about it is one of the biggest benefits of my life is coming from like a small town. And you come from people like, and it's not everybody, but you come from a construction working community. You come from people that don't have a lot of money. A lot of people are living in trailer houses. A lot of people are working a ton of hours and they're happy. They're healthy. They're living their family and they have that mindset. And then my first year at St. Thomas, I saw people with wealth that I didn't even know existed, like coming from my bubble. And you get to see kind of both sides of it. And it's, some people are unhappy and making the choice to be unhappy with all the money. Some people are making the choice to be unhappy without the money. All right. Some people are making the choice to be happy with the money. Some people are making the choice to be happy without the money. And navigating both sides of that, like, kind of life and understanding there's something deeper there, and a lot of it is a choice, is super powerful. But without seeing both sides of that life and without like communicating with both sides of people, like, I mean, communication with both sides right now, like in our world, is huge, and we're not doing it. We're just, this is my tribe, this is my group, and it's who we are as humans to like tribe up and be in a group. But you kind of have to force yourself to branch out into different tribes and different groups and have these conversations with different communities.
Yeah, and then you have the opportunity to bring things back and help your OGs and show them like, okay, this is what I learned and this is how I'm going to help them grow. But like to your point, Deck, having the opportunity to talk to these people your coworkers every morning at 4 a.m. You have to figure out a way to relate to them, but also motivate them. And they want, you don't want to come at them with just like, all right, this is the task for the day. Let's go get this done. We need it done on this date, and expect them to do it. That's like 9 times out of 10, it won't happen. They become demotivated and they fizzle out. And then you can't just go up there and be like, all right, boys, like, look at where we are, 4 a.m. Fuck this. Like, this is a brutal thing that we have to keep doing. But,
sometimes it's like that though, I mean,
sometimes, but that's the point. I'm saying it's the hybrid of the two. And,
totally.
And that's what like we've just been circling for the last 10-ish minutes. It's the hybrid of like, hey, this is the reality. I'm going to look at ourselves as fucking, we're in the fucking grind, and look at us. This is what's happening.
Yeah.
But at the same time, here's the expectations behind it. Bringing yourself down to the level of like what the reality actually is.
I also just like thinking on my toes too. Like, I love being up there, knowing that they don't want to be there, or knowing that they're like barely listening, and like trying to figure out ways to get them involved. So like what I've been doing is learning the days of the week in Spanish, and then I always say like, Feliz, like today's what, Tuesday, or no, today's Thursday. Feliz jueves, mi amigos. And then I started learning the different like family member names. So like niños, I started calling them niños, which are children. So and they thought that shit was hilarious. That's how I started the conversation today, and I just won them all over. And then once you have them, it's easy. But what I love is just the reps. Like right now, I'm just so far away from being able to do like what I used to do in the Twin Cities with potentially 4 open mics a night, and like, or 4 open mics a week with stand-up comedy, and just not having that is being able to fill it with just being comfortable on a stage. I just love that, getting that rep. Like every single day getting that rep has been something like so unique.
Yeah. And talking about getting reps in. I mean, Austin Jochum.
Getting reps in.
Yeah, dude, you've earned your reps. 3 years you lived out of your gym. You established a foundation for Jochum Strength. Walk me through the last couple months and our listeners. Like, there's been some big changes. You recently started operating in a new space, a much bigger space, a much more high profile space for you to grow even further. But walk me through the last couple months, man. I mean, this is a massive step, but also goes to show like the work that you put in to get there, to like the sacrifices and the suffering that you really had to go through.
Yeah. And I think it starts, I was thinking about this. I do a lot of, like, whenever we have a podcast, I do a lot of like prep in quotations. Like, I'm a much better writer than I'm a speaker, and I have to write a ton to be able to like get my thoughts out. Otherwise the words do not happen. So just showing up to this, like, there's a lot of prep that goes in and thinking about this. And I was thinking, like, you have to go without to go within. And I feel like there's so many distractions in like our current world. It is like new job, new boyfriend, girlfriend, new phone, new something, to avoid the feelings that you have, to avoid who you are as a person, to avoid going within. And without going within, you don't really know who you are. You can't build that foundation. You can't lead people. You can't really do something so successful. And 3 years ago, it was not really a choice. I didn't have the money to do anything else, but I made the choice of, I'm going to go without. We're not going to have a house. We're going to sleep at our gym. We're going to sleep in our car. We're going to sleep at the school, and we're going to put everything into what we want to build. And it was something that I've been trying to understand why, but I've always had I can see things like, I know this is going to happen if I do this. And I could see what Jochum Strength could become. I could see what we could build. I could see the community that was going to happen. And so sleeping on the ground, sleeping on the floor, like, it was for something bigger, which was allowed me to do it. Like, every single night you slept there. And this is like something like you guys knew that we were doing, but not a ton of other people knew I was doing. And every single day I couldn't go there until midnight, because the cleaners there every night were there from 10 to 11:30. So I had to figure out their schedules, because you can't sleep in your building without getting reported. So I had to figure out their schedules. So I had to, every night I would finish my session at like 7 or 8 p.m. I would go to St. Thomas, I'd work on stuff on the computer, do some social media stuff. I would use their showers at St. Thomas. Then I would drive back to the gym to be able to sneak back into the gym itself and sleep on the ground. And there was a couple times, like, I've been reported by this janitor girl at the gym a couple times. And every time I'd have to talk to the landlord at the place. I can say this now because I'm not there anymore, but I'd talk to the landlord and be like, no, I was just working late. I do have overseas clients, but I'd be like, hey, I'm working with overseas clients. That's what I'm doing. Leading them through workouts and that type of stuff. And we just sleeping on the ground on the gym, like, grinding through that to be able to, like you said, it's the keep chopping wood mentality. Like, you swing the axe every single day. Like, every single day, whatever you're doing, like, you're going to swing that axe. The tree's not going to fall. Like, it's not going to fall every single day. Nobody gives a fuck that you're swinging the axe. Like, nobody cares. It's your job. It's your responsibility to swing that axe. And you swing it, and you swing it, and you swing it, and you swing it, and the tree falls. All right. People clap when the tree falls. That's cool. Like, that's the first part of the journey. The tree falls. Everybody's like, oh, nice job, dude. Like, you got your first client. Nice job. You opened your first gym. At the bottom of their hearts, they don't give a fuck. They want you to pick it back up and you swing again. And you continue this process until the forest is gone and you have enough lumber to start to build the house. And that's what I feel like we're at the step of. We're starting to build the house of Jochum Strength. We've opened up our first kind of legit, in quotations, spot. And it's where people kind of start to care that they're like, okay, you're actually swinging the axe. You're not talking about swinging the axe. You're not posting about swinging the axe, but you're actually swinging the axe. And we can start to see the results. And that's been kind of the journey of what we've been doing.
Dude, that's amazing. I love that. I think Andrew and I were talking the other day, relating very similarly to this, and we're getting to the point now, you and, like, I feel like in Backpocket terms too, is like what we're doing is speaking louder than what we're saying. and this is a podcast, and like it used to be a podcast, but now we're doing things that are just that speak louder than words. And I feel like for you, you've been so like dedicated with chopping wood that those reps are starting to like really pay off. And watching you grow, just the uniqueness and the satisfying Instagram stories and everything that you do it's just incredible, dude. I mean, and that has been speaking louder than your words. Seriously.
Well, and that's part of it too, is like when you start off, your words have to be louder than you can speak, or your actions, like
you have
your
to
words,
peacock.
You have to, that's part of it. And that's why I think nobody buys in, is because they know it's part of the journey that you have to peacock. You have to, if you can't peacock, if you don't have enough belief in yourself to peacock, like then you're not even going to start. So you have to do that, and everybody understands that, but they're looking at you, and you can tell they're looking at you in the way of like, they know you're peacocking, you're peacocking, but it's part of the journey. And what's really cool is when you start to talk to people and you start to understand, it's like, all right, he's not peacocking anymore. You guys aren't peacocking anymore. It's happening. And that's kind of hopefully the stone that we're starting to turn. And we're all 25. Like the stones that we're turning now are going to be so small in 5 years.
So insignificant.
And right now they're big stones, and we're talking about in 5 years we're going to talk about how we are peacocking now, which if we're doing our jobs, it's what should be happening.
Totally.
That's a good way of looking at it. Amen to that, because right now these steps feel massive, but in the reality, that's not like, this is not where we end. This is not like, oh, we're here now, let's start to be comfortable with what we're doing and get good at those things. No, it's that there's a way bigger vision that we're after, and knowing that 5 years from now, when we hop back on the mics, that we'll look back and be like, oh, we were stoked about throwing a 350 person boat party with Twinsick. Like Matt, like super proud of that. But 5 years from now, what would that look like? What has that turned into? You're at this new gym. 5 years from now, you're looking at this gym that you're opening. It's like, oh, like that's what I was super proud of at that moment.
Do you think, what kind of bed were you sleeping on when you were sleeping in your little yoga studio?
The ground.
You didn't buy like a mattress pad?
No.
What?
Do without, man. Like
a mattress pad costs $80.
Do without. If you're gonna embrace.
I didn't know this.
Oh yeah, it was turf, and I had a blanket on top and a pillow.
How's your back?
I felt amazing.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I think that's part of it. Like, if you're gonna commit to, it wasn't the half-ass. Like my parents found out and were like, oh, we'll get you an air mattress. It's like, that's bullshit. Like, the whole point of sleeping on the ground is to get your ass off the ground. Like, you're gonna set yourself up in a way of, I'm gonna fucking build comfort into sleeping on the gym. Like, no, you are a loser. You are sleeping on the ground of your gym, of your 400 square foot gym. I told people 400 square foot gym, and you're gonna give yourself comfort. It's like, no, the whole point of sleeping on the ground to me is you're gonna go without, and you're gonna get out of that. Like, you're gonna get out of that space. You talked about comfort. Like, comfort scares me. Comfort scares me a lot. I know what comfort does to people. I know what it does to myself when I'm comfortable. How can you eliminate some of that comfort? There's no way I would be doing the things that I'm doing if I was comfortable. If I had a safety and backup plan, if I had any money saved up in the bank, like, there was no other option. And if you try to add some of that comfort, if you try to add some of those things that, like a safety net, I'll do this, you're never really going to truly push yourself, because you have a backup plan. In the back of your head, you have that backup plan. It's safe. And that was kind of my goal, is kind of eliminate that safety net, and we're going to go forward.
When you were acquiring clients and like living off of the things you were doing every single day, did you find yourself in a position where you were having to be like money driven or anything like that? Like, was that ever clouding judgment or like inducing anxiety or anything like that?
No. My overhead at the gym was like $600. So as long as we were able to get that $600 and we were building in the right way, I was never going to compromise kind of like long-term gains for the short-term anything. Okay. So then that was part of keeping like the overhead super low on everything.
Right.
Making sure you don't have to make those compromises, making sure you don't have to sacrifice something for a long-term game. There's athletes that we've said no to. There's athletes that we've had to kick out because it's It's not going to fit the long-term culture of what we want to do.
Mm.
And if you're stuck in a spot where you need the money and it's part of like keeping you alive, you're going to bring those athletes in. You're going to have to keep them, and you're going to have to become a servant to that. And that's not like for long-term goal. That was not what I saw trying to build the culture of what we wanted to build.
Yeah, and what was it like building that culture with the initial influx of clients? Like you, at the beginning stages, you had to go grab someone and you had to work with them and you had to understand who they were and just do with what you had in front of you. But how was it like shaping that mold of clientele and then like being able to refine it and dial in on actually people that you want to work with?
That kind of happened super organically once you made that initial cut. You made the initial cut of one, putting out who you were as a person. I think that's super big. It's like people put out content that they think will attract other people, and then you just attract people that aren't who you want to attract. And I said, fuck it. Like, I'm going to put out who I am, what I believe in, why am I doing it? And then everybody that came to our gym, they knew it's like, all right, this guy's fucking deep. This guy plays around with the stuff that we do. This guy's going to do a lot of different movements that I'm not used to. They understood what was happening when they came into the gym. And that was big. And you bring in these people, and then that core group of people brings in other people that they think is going to be a good fit. And you can tell when somebody's not a fit into like the group, they know, and like the core group of our athletes know. And they're like, that person's not going to last. It's not going to last in that culture. It's not going to last in the kind of growth mindset that we kind of build up. And
what were some of those signs like that stood out that they were like, is it like the prototypical ones, like, not going the extra length and things like that? Or
I would say it's more ego. It's like, if you can't eliminate your ego in what we're doing, you're not going to fit in. And there's definitely guys that have came in with big egos, but they shape it up. They realize really quickly, which is a big part of it. If you can't go into training, if you can't go into, and what we try to do is like, we're going to better you as a human. And the biggest part of that I see with like college aged males is they think their shit doesn't stink. Like, everybody comes in with like, my dick is the biggest. And it's like, no, like we're going to cut that shit off. And what that allows you to do is fail. And that is something that is, I harp on left and right. They do not like doing it. They've been trained their entire lives. Failure is bad. Failure is bad. Failure is bad. So they don't risk. And if you don't risk, you're never going to grow. So you have to, the very first thing that we do is, failure's all right. You're going to fail. That's the number one thing that I do with my athletes is you're going to fail. Whatever we do, like, I'm going to find something that you suck at. We're going to continue to do it until we break that mental conditioning in your head that failing is bad. And once they get all right with failing, it's so cool. They're pushing themselves to limits. They're trying things that they've never done. They're unlocking abilities in their body that they never had before, or they had before and it was so hidden between like, I don't know if I can do this, so I'm not going to. And that's where you have that athlete and person stay the same person for 4 years in college, the same athlete for 4 years in college, because they never risk enough. So the number one thing that we try to do is eliminate that ego and eliminate that kind of fear of failure, because it's not bad. It's how you grow. If you're not failing the program, like, I could sit there and tell you how great you are, and you could pay me a bunch of money to do that, which is what a lot of gyms do. It's like, you come in, you're great. Look at all these great tests. Look at all these great numbers. I want to bring you in and be like, hey, this is where you suck. Let's get better at it.
Nice. When you keep saying we, I just want to know, like, what's your team nowadays?
We is the community.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Good call.
Eliminate the I.
I like it.
Yeah.
And then what's like, I'm not asking it for you to flex your numbers. I just want to know, like, how is your growth in clients? Like, cause I know you mentioned you had some overseas clients. You got a lot more females running around in the gym too, which I think, is a significant improvement from, when it first started.
Yes.
And okay, real quick tangent, watching your athletes go, like, on your Instagram stories, go from like not being able to hold that low push-up on the dumbbells for like 30 seconds to like competing for what, 3-4 minutes?
11 minutes.
11 minutes, dude.
It gets wild.
Like, seeing those guys compete like that is so raw, and that really got my attention. Like, what's it like seeing an athlete grow to that magnitude?
It's unbelievable. And they know it. Like, they're watching each other. That's the coolest part, is like, they're watching each other and inspiring each other. Like, the number one thing that I do is bring in people that have that. Like, you can talk to somebody and you know they have the fire in them. There's people that have the fire and people that don't have the fire. And if you bring in to a room, into a 400 square foot room, 11 people that have the fire, like, shit gets weird. Like 11-minute ISOs where people are just screaming and like breaking down and like shit's happening, and you're watching all of that, and the belief factor in that room is so crazy. And it's just inspiring watching athlete inspire another athlete. And you talked about the females coming in. One of the absolute like game changers, I think, of my career is working with Natalie and CJ are like the two kind of OG female athletes that we work with. And one, working with females, Lauren's here, but the emotional intelligence females have is so much higher than guys. It's
way higher.
Way higher. It's like you can have a conversation with them and you're like, oh my God, this is what a conversation should be like. I feel like it's like, we're not trying to flex any numbers. Like, we're not trying to be bros. It's just like, I was like, and that part was really, really cool. But watching, so you have these female athletes. Natalie's really good at gymnastics. So she does some gymnastics type movement, and you have the football guy watching that and like, oh shit, like I want to do that. So you have the football guy inspired by her watching that gymnastics type movement. So he wants to better himself watching that and the different talents there. And you have Natalie watching the football guy move a shitload of weight because he's 230 pounds. And now she's inspired to move that weight. And you kind of have that bumping back and forth of different skill sets. And we talked about like the different communities at the start of the podcast, but you have different skill sets that is inspiring other people to kind of reach to new limits, which has been kind of the coolest part this past year, because there's so many different athletes coming in now, whereas before it was all like a bunch of football meatheads, which I love. Like that's the main part of the business. But now you have so many different kind of avenues and different communities that is kind of opening their eyes to everything.
Besides Jack Burke, who's your most unique client?
My most unique?
Yeah.
We have a lot of unique. That we were talking about the other day. We have there's some weird clients. We have
You don't need to name names, but I just want to hear some.
We have a guy that he only says like, he's like Woody in Toy Story, where you pull the boot and he has like his catchphrases.
There's a snake in my boot.
He has a couple he says, I don't eat vegetables and I'm MVP. And it's like the only two things he says. Like, he's like a slogan guy. He only says slogans. We have another guy that only dates moms. He strictly only dates moms. He's 22, only dates moms.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Is it pretty cool, or what's the feedback so far?
I don't know. I stay out of that. I just hear these conversations left and right. But they were talking about like, you could for sure have a Jochum Strength reality TV show, and you bring in Dowdle just left and right, just to add in a little bit of the spice. But you could have a reality TV show watching and listening to some of the conversations that are happening.
What's it like taking a guy who you see the fire but he doesn't see it, and then you bring it out of him? Like, when these guys walk into this 400 square foot gym, like, do they know what they're signing up for? Was it like, I know how
was it convincing them?
Yeah, what's it like convincing them, showing up to that kind of space and then have like eventually getting them to buy in? Like, what's that like?
Yeah, and that's I mean, getting the buy-in is different than lighting the fire. Getting the buy-in happens on the front end of, like, if they're coming to me, they understand what they're getting into.
Okay. Nice.
Lighting the fire is different. That is something that, I mean, it happened in mine, but it's like most of it is just showing them, being somebody that is a foundation for them, being somebody that they can look up to, which I think is super, super powerful in like kind of today's world. Is we don't have a ton of like solid people to look at and be like, that's going to be a leader. That's going to be somebody that I look up to. Trying to be something like that for them, and just a solid rock, and fighting through that, and then showing them, hey, you can be that same person. You have that in you. You can do all these things. Everybody that you look up to, like, you can have that happen. And then having them, showing them that's one thing with the ISOs. It's, you start a guy off with 30 seconds on the ISO, and you get them to a point where they're doing it for 10 minutes straight, and the look in their eyes and the confidence in their eyes, it's crazy. It's game changing in everything that they do. And it's like they walk around differently. We had a guy last summer. He had a nervous twitch. So anytime that he met somebody new or was caught in a conversation in which he didn't know what he was going to say, he twitched. He had like a nervous twitch. And by the end of the summer, we got him to a point where like it didn't happen anymore. And his parents noticed it, his like teammates noticed it, because it was just like the confidence factor. And it's like, that is the stuff that we're going for. The physical stuff, like, yes,
That'll come.
That'll come. Like that's a great part. All gyms can do that. It's what's the next level? How can we help you long term? And that's kind of what we push for.
Holy fuck. Dude, look at all the hairs on my arms are standing up. That is the coolest thing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what separates you. Hands down. Hands down, that's what separates you. And that's why you care. And Jochum Strength entire community cares about each other. That is so entirely different. I mean, I always noticed like why you're different. You know what I mean? But
it's like it's very apparent when you got guys like in your new gym. I was gonna ask you like, hey, what's the legality behind your people climbing up on like the steel rafters now?
We're probably gonna get kicked out for that, but we'll keep that on the DL. Yeah. They haven't said anything yet, but it was like day one. It was day one, and we were supposed to be doing pull-ups, and then one of my interns started climbing shit, which we normally climb, and then one of the other athletes is like, hey, watch this. And I was like, oh, Jesus Christ, we're going to get kicked out. They're climbing like, it's like an 8-foot drop. It's just like extra storage area. And they're climbing up like 8 feet tall to do this. And I was like, it's super sick watching. But then you're like thinking as the business owner, like, if one of them falls, I'm fucked.
Yeah, dude, that's like a 6-foot fall from when they're like trying to push themselves up. Like aesthetically, you are very unique and different in that sense. Sorry, but
no, I mean, that type of shit, right? It's going after someone's like improvements of their day to day, and you have the quote, the keep chopping wood, right? Like people can take that in many different ways, and they can be like, all right, how can I be consistent? How can I have a routine and go through the day to day? I'm honest. I'm just blown away from that story alone, from someone that has something as extreme as a nervous tick to embodying them or allowing them to enter this community, feel it, and whatever that happened inside that circle for how many days, they were able to be comfortable enough where that extreme habit started to decrease to the point where it didn't happen anymore.
Yeah, and that community is the biggest part, and the only like one of my favorite things, because it's like you have to do it by example. I wear mismatched socks almost every single day for the yin and yang part of it.
I was going to ask, dude, like, was this a bad laundry rotation?
No, every day. And all I'm trying to do is like show people like, hey, you can be an individual. I wear weird shorts. I try to wear goofy outfits. I try to do goofy things. It's like, you can be an individual. Like, it's all right. You can come here and you can be yourself. You can wear what you want to wear. You can do what you want to do. You can say what you want to say. And allowing people to do that and having other people enforcing it. It's watching, like, I wish I could record somebody coming in day one, what they're wearing, what they're saying, what they're doing, compared to second week that they come in, when they start to realize, oh, this, I can totally be myself. I can totally do these things. And they start to, you can tell, they start to wear what they want to wear. They start to say what they want to say. And that's where it's like, I mean, a coach that is very analytical is going to struggle in our environment, because it's like, it's chaos. Like, some of the stuff that they're talking about, it's like, oh my God, what are we even saying? What are we wearing? But you finally get to show somebody like, it's all right to do what you want to do. In the world that we live in, where it's not all right to do that, you'll get canceled for anything that you want to. You canceled for wearing mismatched socks. Like, you can come to the gym, you don't even have to wear socks. A lot of time we don't even wear shoes. Like, you're going to do these weird things, and you're going to get comfortable in your own skin. And that's something that we need to continue to inspire people. Like, you are yourself. You are a soul that was put in your body to inspire people. You have talents nobody else has. You have ideas nobody else has. And you need to get them out to the world, because you're not here forever. And a lot of people don't. They keep everything in, and they're told to keep it in, and they're conditioned to keep it in. And we try to break kind of all of that.
Yeah, that's the impetus of everything that we do as a unit. You know, the Backpocket is founded on creating space for someone to be themselves and allow them to enter in this community of other people doing themselves, and hopefully they meet a couple people along the way, and people hear that shit, and they're able to do it more and more and more people notice it. But having a space for yourself to be 100% transparent and honest with who you are, whether it's in podcasting form, whether it's in an event space, whether it's in strength and conditioning and in your sport. Everyone has that creative entity, but to tap into it and allow someone to scale it and give them pieces to do it is the basis of what we do. Like that is Jochum Strength. That is Backpocket. We are creative entities that scale people.
Well, you need to have a canvas like that. That's like, it doesn't matter what the canvas is. It doesn't matter if it's a podcast company. It doesn't matter if it's a podcast production company. It doesn't matter if it's a gym, but you need to have a canvas. You need to be able to create your art. And I just finished Zen in the Art of Archery, and it was talking about the whole goal of
Jack Burke was cracking up that you read.
Yeah, it was talking about that.
And you recently read Animal Farmer as well, right?
I did, yes.
Okay, so we'll get your review on that here very soon.
It was good, but the whole point is like, it's the art of archery. The goal is to not hit the target every single time. He was talking about his master was leading him through all these breathing techniques and all of this, like a lot of internal stuff that he's talking about, teaching. And he's like, he's from the Western, like he's from our world where he's like, teach me how to shoot the target. And it's like, that's not the goal. If I just teach you how to shoot the target, you've gained the skill of archery. You've gained the skill of podcasting. You've gained the skill of lifting weights. Nobody cares about that. That's part of the process. That's something that's just happening in the background. It's the journey to get there. It's the skill sets and people that you meet to get there. It's learning to become yourself on the way there. And that was something I was like, that's exactly what we're doing. You need to have that canvas to be able to paint on.
That's incredible. That's it. That's the bee's knees, dude. I mean, and I think it comes down to like, you have to like create something to like learn about yourself more and like find like a different perspective in a sort of fulfillment. And it's really fun, but it's hard as shit. You know, like there's times where you doubt yourself. You're going to start to battle inside your own head. But honing in on that one, like I like the gratitude of it. Like the fact that you even have a canvas to paint on. I was reading a thing from, do you follow Timmy Bishop?
I don't think so.
Okay, so he's just a kid. He's just a kid from Milwaukee, you know. But he lives in LA now, and he works under Charlie, CEO Charlie. You know, the guy who runs around in the Dream Machine.
I don't think so.
Okay. You don't know this guy?
I'm not connected.
Okay.
I'm not plugged in. Apparently.
Anyways, so this kid, we'll get you caught up. It's not that. It's kind of irrelevant. But the kid, anyways, he got the new COVID Delta, what the Delta variant. There you go. And kid almost freaking died. And I know I say that like he's our age and super healthy guy. Anyways, he posted this thing about like how the happiness is like a complex and it's relative to what you're looking at in terms of like if you're looking up all the time and saying like, oh, I wish like we were Barstool or something like that.
I wish we were on Mars.
I wish we were on Mars.
I do wish we were on Mars.
Wish we were on Mars. Like I'm just gonna be all sad and stuff. Like I'm not really maximizing my time here because all I do is keep thinking about freaking Mars. Or you can look down and think highly on yourself and have like this ego complex of like, oh, like at least we're not Mercury, you know, like Mercury blows type thing. Like, oh, Earth is the best. Like, fuck Mercury.
Mercury's way too close to the sun.
Way too close. It's way too hot. We think Arizona's hot, dude. Mercury stinks, you know, like. But the whole point is they did this study on like Olympic athletes, and the gold medalists were obviously the happiest. Like they did, it was happiness of each athlete and then like the position that they got, and they did gold, silver, and bronze, and the bronze was actually happier than the silver because the silver kept looking at the opportunity they missed rather than the opportunity that they got or what the result they had. And then the bronze was just kind of happy to be there because it was looking down at the other 40, 50 competitors and being like, wow, I can't believe I got into a podium spot type thing. And obviously gold won, so that they were stoked. But it just goes back to what you're saying of like this creative process and like this grind that we keep going through over and over and over again. The fuel is the happiness. The fuel is like understanding, finding those little wins from time to time to time. Just freaking sick, dude.
Yeah, and having the perception to like have that make sense. I think that's like one of the biggest things. Get a little deep here, but so one of the biggest like eye openers for me in the past year is I had a grandma pass away and an uncle pass away. And my uncle passed away, and I have a cousin that's a senior in high school. And she stood up in front of everybody at the funeral home and was talking about how she's going to have to go her whole life without her dad walking her down the aisle, like that type of stuff.
Jeez.
And the week before, I was fucking complaining about my job. You're like, all right, perception. Like, put your shit into, like, perspective. Like, put it into what's actually happening in the world. My grandpa had his wife of 30 years pass away. My grandma pass away. And 2 days later, he's waking up at 4 a.m. to go work his job. Like, perception, like, put it into place. Like, I have very little patience for people that complain. Very, very little. I had it before. Like, it's just how I was raised, very little. And then I see stuff like that, and they're still happy. Like, they appreciate the life that the people that have passed away have had. They've put it in perspective themselves, and they're doing and living their lives. And you have people that come in and in our world, they'll complain about exercises. They'll complain about this. It's like, really, man? Like, that's what we're complaining about. Like, that's the stuff that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to put those things in perspective for people, being able to talk about those things with people, I think is big. Because once you understand that, once you see that in real life, you're able to take that step back and be grateful for everything. I'm grateful I'm here with you guys today. Like, the amount of universes I've been diving into, like the multiverse world, and the amount of universes where this isn't happening, where I took the wrong turn, where in high school I continued to drink and hang out with those people, where I took wrong paths, where we never meet each other, this never happens, the gym never opens. So many more universes than this one that is happening in. So that the odds that is happening is so much higher than this actually happening. You're blessed beyond belief to be, if you're listening to this podcast right now, like, just think about that. Like, how crazy is that? You have the luxury to be able to spend time to listen to us talk. Like, you are blessed. And you have to be able to daily put that in perspective, because we're creatures that we like to kind of forget. Like, we forget our past. We don't understand. We don't put things in perspective unless you force yourself to do so. And that's something that I think I've had to do within the past years. Like, daily, put those things in perspective. Understand, like, your life's not hard. Sleeping on the floor is not hard. Losing your dad is hard. Like, that is hard. You got to be able to put this stuff in perspective and understand, like, there's so much worse out there. Whatever you're going through, it's not that bad.
Yeah, man. Thanks for sharing that. That's, yeah. The perspective aspect. I just got finished reading a fiction book, The Midnight Library, and it's all about the multiverse of having this girl decides to commit suicide because she doesn't. Everybody that was connected to her gave up on her and removed herself from the neighbor, the old neighbor that needed a pill prescription, and she would go and grab it for him. He decided to go with someone else. Like, every aspect of her life, no one relied on her anymore. So she decides to commit suicide. And she enters this multiverse before she actually dies and has the opportunity to live every other life possible. And she has a book of regrets, and she has the opportunity to redo them and try it a different way. She goes through all of these regrets, and I mean, it's a very short read, very simple, straightforward, to the point of what you just said. She just never put into she didn't put into perspective what she had going on in her actual life, and none of the other things that she was regretting actually were going to lead to happiness or actual fulfillment. It was more so her not looking at the opportunity in front of her and saying, this is beauty, and there is beauty in here. Yes, there is suffering. Yes, there is struggle, but I can fix it, and I have that opportunity. And what we're doing right here now with Backpocket is, I'm bringing up Bocella again. Like, we just accomplished something that we've been after for 3 years with Bocella, 5 years with Backpocket. Like, we accomplished something massive in our perspective right now. A huge win for Backpocket. And Deck and I had a conversation this week, and we were challenging each other. I'm like, what's our perspective right now? How should we look at the corp? Where do we need to be? Where's our goals at for the next 6 months, and all of these things in between. And we really just pushed each other to just dial in, because we're together 100% on what Backpocket's future is. So we just have to continuously have those conversations of, yo, Deck, where's your head at with this perspective on Backpocket being potentially full-time? Or like, if money came in here, are we motivated by money in this area? In different nuances and different things.
Well, it all became from the perspective of, like, hey, we should probably put together, like, a plan for the next 6 months at least, because typically after Bocelli, like you chop wood so many times day after day after day. Like we're under a lot of pressure to like execute on certain things to just make to make the boat party happen. Then that tree finally falls and it just feels like this really awesome set of relief. But like in the first 2 years, like I've always noticed us just kind of dip down, like go kind of off grid and us going off grid is not necessarily actually off grid, but just the energy isn't the same.
A lack of progress in August and September until we get to like the winter months.
And then the pressure's ramped way back up because
it's the end of the
whatever
year.
The hell we come up with.
It's fourth quarter, and we're ready to
Q4,
turn it back into gear. But this is a down period for us in the past, and we're ready to challenge ourselves. Like, what planning needs to be happening for next year? How do we want to tackle date night podcasts, X, Y, and Z, and huge ventures that Deck and I are after with each entity. And also looking at this whole thing where we have Date Night Podcast, Straight Candid, producing Adam Thielen's, Bochella, XYZ, you name it. There's a lot of things on our plate right now. And the very, very fucking bottom of it all is what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
That is another perspective that Deck and I have to have the reality of. Like, we don't have the time and energy to put in the time to put what this actually takes to scale it, if you will. We've flipped our perspective, and this is not the hub of the revenue stream. This is the value of what we do. We looked back on this year on all of the guests we had, and Deck and I had a conversation of, and sorry to go on like a Backpocket tangent, but Deck and I had a conversation of like, should we stop doing the Backpocket podcast? Because we have so many other things on our plate, so many responsibilities that we've demanded of ourselves that to be better at them, this is so low on the totem pole that we may want to cut it. And we had an hour-long conversation going on why we should and why we shouldn't. And one of the biggest tipping points was this year we felt like we haven't put in the time. We haven't cared about it enough. And we went back on all the guests we've had on, and it turns out every single person on there we deeply care about, and we've done something dope with every single person on the podcast.
Yeah, it's just like a networking thing.
It's a networking tool, and it's
friendship
growing. It's a friendship tool. It's a way to truly connect with someone for an hour and a half. And no matter what that means in the grand scheme of things, that hour and a half is so beautiful that I will forever do it. And I'm gonna work my ass off and hold ourselves accountable every Thursday to do this.
Prioritize it.
And that was a perspective shift of like, we were ready to quit on it and focus our time on scaling Straight Candid, on getting better at Bochella and doing it 2 days and doing all these nuances and cut this. And that's not the answer.
Yeah.
It's like cutting the foundation.
It's cutting the foundation.
Yeah. I feel that.
It was pretty nuts. And I know you relate to it too with your podcast, and like bravo for you to using it as a networking tool, and like the amount of clients and various things that you've done with your Jochum Strength podcast has just been incredible. So I'd like to just congratulate you on that, but also I love when you text us too. Like I think you had like a viral Instagram reel the other day too. You're like, dude, this shit works. Like, this is insane. Like, I can't believe this is an actual thing. What is it like to try and show your true colors, like, while also measuring like the analytics? You're not measuring the analytics, but like seeing the response of like showing your true colors on social media and knowing that that's like the first place someone may see you, but like the last place you want them is when they walk in the gym.
Yeah, I think it's interesting is like balancing that out. It's like the art with the business. Like how do you balance that out? And I've just always fallen back on the art is the business, and you can't you can't leave that. Like you guys, I mean, you could cut this, but you really can't cut this. Like you said, it's like the lifeblood of what you're doing, and making sure that lifeblood stays alive and well. And everything on top of that is the bonus. You know, like the viral stuff is the bonus, but trying to search for viral, like. Yeah. To me, that's tough. Like, and first of all,
it's empty,
and it's like you're not going to go viral. Like, the reason you go viral is because it's your art, and nobody else has seen that. You know, like nobody else. That's why it grabs people's attention. It's real. They're looking at it. It's different. It's a different perspective. It's a different exercise. It's a different shift on things. You try to go viral, you're going to just put stuff out that you think is going to go viral. And when you start to go, I see it all the time. The strength conditioning world, like you see it all the time. It's like they're posting that because they think somebody else is going to like that. It never works. Never works. Because it's like, that's not you. People can smell that shit. Like, it's not who you are. You're posting that for somebody else, not for yourself. And so not only when you chase that viralness do you not get it, but then you also feel empty. Whereas at least with the artwork side of it, you can feel good. And then hopefully you do get the viral stuff that happens on top of it, which, like, you talk about that video, like that was so stupid. Like, that's where I lost all faith in social media.
That's why you
like,
sent it to us, because you're like, this is the dumbest thing that this is going off right now.
Like 1.5 million views and 2,000 followers in 2 days. I was like, every like, when I look at social media, like, people with big followings, it's like, all right, they've earned that following. All right, they have like knowledge pieces there. I was like, oh, okay, I got 2,000 followers. That could have been the dumbest fucking post ever, and you could have got 2,000 followers, and now, like, you're a legit Instagrammer. It's like, I don't know. That's where I lost. I was like, fuck, dude. Like, some of the people, like, they could have had the same thing, like a viral video, get 2,000 followers in a day, and now they look like a legit person. It could be stupid as hell. So that was something that was like, oh my God, I don't know about this anymore. Yeah, it's all algorithm games. Just trying to grab the algorithm.
Exactly. And, there's a strategy to it, and there's, like, we use it to our advantage just because it's part of kind of our service and what we do as a production company to help people, like, scale their podcast or whatever. So, we have to, we like to be enthused by the algorithm on, like, what actually works and what doesn't. But it still comes back to, like, when you, like, what matters. Like, and when you were asking today, like, oh, what are we going to talk about? Like, I'm about to head out on my spirit walk, and you're like, what are we going to talk about today? And I did the classic, like, typed up a response but never sent it type thing. You ever do that shit?
Sure.
Yeah.
And basically my response was like, dude, I just can't wait to, like, catch up and hang out. Like, because, again, these universes allowed it for us to be here. It'd be stupid not to just capitalize on just a conversation.
Amen. Yeah. I mean, we're just here to document, and that's another reason why the Backpocket exists and will forever exist, is because we're documenting our perspective right now and our massive wins that were occurring. Bocella, opening a gym. Those are massive right now. 3 years from now, what's that perspective going to be?
Hopefully the wins are a little larger.
Hopefully the wins are always
Hopefully
larger.
we're on March starting our new gym there.
Yeah, on the first shuttle. On another note, I'm curious, like, I was just talking about how I have deck to, like, lean on so many times through thick and thin. How is it being the sole operator? Like, what's that like? What's the reality like consistently having to do everything? That I'm going to leave that there because I'm honestly impressed, right? You've continuously, and that's not only you, right? You have other people, but at the end of the day, it is you. You're pushing the needle.
I think it's powerful. I don't know. It helps me a ton in what I'm doing. Like, you got to get good at a lot of shit or your business is going to suck. Your gym is going to suck. And that's something that I've just continued to, like, emphasize is every book that I read, like, one of the things I was, like, listening to, like, you're not smart enough to be too busy to read. Like, that was something I was thinking about the other day, is like, you're not at a level. I was being a lazy ass and not reading. I was like, who am I to lead this business and go in a direction and not be reading, not listening to as many podcasts as possible? Like, you got to sharpen the sword. You got to sharpen the axe if you want to keep chopping wood thing. And if you're not that person, if you don't have the answers, and many times you don't have the answers to start when you're trying to figure these things out when you're doing the podcast, but, like, you sure as shit better figure them out. Like, and it develops you as a human. Like, it develops you as a person. That the ability to talk to people. Horrible at. Like, when I was a kid, I was in speech class because I had like a slur.
Impediment.
Yeah, speech impediment. It was like a slur. Like, I couldn't say gummy worms. I would say dummy worms. Like, I couldn't talk. Like, and developing these things. Like, you got to build up these skill sets. You're gonna suck at a lot of things. You're gonna be good at some things, but being the sole person behind Jochum Strength, it forces you to be a better person. Otherwise your business is going to suck. Like, your gym's going to suck. People are buying it for you. So you better have a sharp sword. You better be worth it. And that's something that I kind of hopefully pride myself on being is hopefully I am worth it, for you to come here. You are taking these hours out of your day. You are taking this amount of money. You spent this amount of time doing your research to come to my gym. There's hundreds of gyms in the cities. You drove past. We have people that drive an hour there, an hour back. It's like, you put that commitment in, it better be worth it for you. And you got to develop those skill sets so it is worth it. And there's so many skill sets to develop, like you said, like because you're the only person leading it, but it helps you as a person. Like it's part of the journey of life to be able to use all these skill sets to hopefully something grander than the gym itself.
The resources that you have in terms of like, you know, you're leaning on yourself to a certain degree, but you're also like you said, I like the strengthening, or not the sharpening of the axe per se. What was it like reading Animal Farm, and how did that sharpen your axe?
Yeah, I don't think I need to read more of those books because I feel like I already have that mindset of like there's a lot of corrupt shit going on. But
you're already a little woke in that sense.
I'm already a little woke. Like already a little woke. Probably need to read a little bit on the other side of things.
I think that's a little unwoke of you to say how woke you are.
You think? I don't know, man. I see some woke people talking about third eye open all the time. But
yeah, what's your chakras like nowadays?
It's great. They're all open. But my favorite thing about the Animal House, the Animal House is like this dude had to. It's crazy. He had to write he had to put his message in a children's story, so he didn't get murdered for writing this book. Like,
yeah, wait, back up on that, because I remember them telling us about this in like literature class, but I forgot the story. Can you rehash it of like who the author is, what the book is?
Well, it's all against like Stalin's like utopia that he was creating, and the author was in he was in this world. He was seeing what was happening, and he was listening to Americans specifically, like the Western world, talk about how great it was and talk about the utopia that's there and talk about how amazing it would be if we had that. So he wrote this book to shy away from that, but he couldn't write it in like a way of like, hey, this is what's happening.
Like first perspective.
You can't just say that, like, because they'll kill you. Like that's why it's not a utopia. Like there's a lot of dark shit going on. So he had to write it in the message of like this fairy tale and get it out, which is super. And I'm sure there's fact checkers out there. Maybe I have the story wrong, but it was super cool. And the message in like the start of the book is how somebody wrote the intro to the book. I can't remember who it was now, but somebody else wrote the intro to the book, and they were talking about why this book still matters. And it's like, because we as humans, like we're not different. We're not a different species. Like we forget the terrible shit that has happened in the past, the terrible stuff that we as humans have done to other people in the past. And we kind of live the world in, I talk about this, like the no expert approach to living your life. It's like the Romans, when they were at the height, they thought they had all the answers. They thought they were the bee's knees of civilizations. We look at the Romans now and be like, dude, their shit sucks. Like they had slaves, like they were killing people. They were doing this stuff. Like
they founded concrete though.
You would not want to go back and live in the Roman days for longer than a week. Your life expectancy would be severely decreased. But in that moment, they thought they were the bee's knees. And now we look at ourselves and we're like, oh, we have the answers. Like, all right, we have the answers. We are the bee's knees. It's like, we're all so stupid. Like, we're so dumb. In 100 years, people are going to look at what we are doing and be like, you guys are idiots. Like, why were you doing these things? Why were you doing these things? And without that kind of perspective, you get stuck in the rut of thinking we have the answers. We are the best human species. It's like, no, we're still the same flawed human species that we've always been. And we just pretend that we aren't for some reason. Like, we have that perspective in our head, and we need to kind of eliminate that.
Yeah. We exist to serve. We exist to serve one another. We exist to serve a higher purpose, whatever like that underlying meaning is. But while you're like acting in your day to day and you're listening to another person talk, it's not trying to hear what they're saying and take advantage of it. It's to hear what someone has to say and how can you help them? How can you serve them? That is at the end of the day, like I'm like really rooting my everyday thought in, and it's really coming from what my dad's doing with For Our Shared Humanity and walking 1,700 miles for 120 days. Like he's doing that to serve. He's doing that to serve this charity, and everyone's looking at him to say, what are these conversations you're having? What are they saying? What's their answers? What? Like he's not walking down the center of the country to come up with this giant hypothesis on like how we're going to actually create common ground. He's doing it to serve and offer a space for someone to say something. It doesn't have to be the right thing. And he's on day fucking 33.
Executing at an all-time
high. And still
swinging
going
the
at
axe
it.
every day.
Swinging the axe.
And he's getting it in.
And he just keeps doing it. And, you know, he's in a space where it could be heavily criticized because there's, you know, there's potential for underlying political motives, right? Like that could happen, and he's trying to do his best to veer away from it. But when you're going after common ground and you're doing it at the age of 55 in this public space, like there are plenty of critics out there ready to, jump on him and say, oh, you're on this side of you're on this team and this is what you're doing. And they're missing the entire meaning of what's happening. And he's just reinforcing, I'm here to serve. I'm offering my hand in service. It's so insane.
Well, and the connection piece there, you talk about like finding that common ground and finding the ability to connect. And that's something that is like, we kind of miss that right now. Like we have ideas either side. Like you have these ideas that it's you talk to somebody over social media specifically, and it's like, that's not that person. That's that idea that has infested their brain. Have you read The Beginning to Infinity?
I downloaded the audiobook like a couple days ago.
Okay, that book will fuck you up like mentally, but it was talking about how ideas like they invade your mind, basically, like they infest your mind, and they continue to spread that way. Like that's how ideas evolve, and they evolve at a much more rapid pace than like typical like biology evolution. And these ideas infest people's brains, and you hear them talk, and it's like, that's not that person talking. There's not that person tweeting. It's that idea that is in their head. I know that person, especially this past year. I've known people for 5 to 10 years, super good relationship with them. I know they're good people. And you hear some of the stuff come out of their mouths. You have some of the conversations with them, and it's like that's not you. You're not like you're invaded. You're not. And once you talk to them in person and are able to have that connection, are able to start to find that common ground, you start to see them again. You start to see that person. You start to see the soul. But without that common ground, without that connection, which is something I think that your dad's doing, like I think it's super cool. Like see how that kind of formulates at the end is like, without that person-to-person common ground connection, people just start to get invaded with these ideas that it's not who they are, and it's only evolving rapidly into like a worse spot than where we're currently at.
Right. Yeah. And I think the intentionality of like you don't have to necessarily, you can run with your ideas if there's not someone in your way, right? Like there's not, with John's perspective, him showing up at those people's doorsteps, their hand is now forced. They can't run with their idea in the opposite direction. They basically have to face it right in the fucking face. But I just think it's really cool that whole intentionality behind the, like, we can battle and argue all the time over text, over social media, everything. But the second you get in person and you try to have that same conversation or navigate that same dialogue, there's a different feel to it.
Like you said, you're forced to face that idea. And I think when people are smart, like we're all human beings, and when you're forced to face that idea with a face-to-face conversation, a lot of stuff starts to fall apart. Like a lot of those ideas start to fall apart, and you guys are able to actually find a common ground. Whereas over text, I'm not forced to face anything. I can text it like, fuck you, Andrew. Like I can text that, and like there's no face-to-face. There's no like I actually have to face that idea of why I don't like Andrew. It's kind of behind a wall. Whereas if I face you, it's like, oh, like I like this about Andrew. Maybe we disagree on this idea, but you're not going to just say fuck you, Andrew, to your face, you know?
And that's just continuous reinforcement of what we've talked about the entire night of virality is never going to get you anywhere. It's empty. The one-to-one will always win. Having the ability to impact someone one-to-one will always win in any way, shape, or form. Be a good person at all times. Deck and I were talking about this also on Tuesday night. Like, he's out in Arizona. I'm here in Minneapolis. I have the ability to leave that one-to-one impression every single time I leave this apartment. How am I going to use that opportunity? How am I going to potentially come across someone that I've had on the podcast or see someone on the street and leave that impact to potentially grow Backpocket further? Dex in an RV in the farmland. He doesn't necessarily have that opportunity as consistent as I do. And he said it straight to my face. I challenge you to really realize that and take that full-heartedly. And I was like, amen. Like, I needed to hear that.
Well, and dude, another funny thing too, and once I had told you that, I was like, like what kind of person am I right now in the environment that I'm in? And I was looking into, my different relationships of just the people that I know in the greater town of Tonopah, like the greater 2000. And like, there's people that go back and forth on our property all the time, and it's so funny the different people that are there, and like these really like isolated like cowboy like just really hardo redneck dudes, and they just like I get along so well with them. Like we have such a good time and like have good genuine conversation all the time, and it's just like it's amazing how you can connect with people. It's truly incredible as long as there's like a genuine intention, and like those people see that intention too. That's the best part.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing.
We have about
before we get kicked out of the
we have about 5 minutes here before we get kicked out of our new podcast studio. That's the community space of my apartment complex.
It's a great space.
It's a great space.
I like it.
It's a little hot in here.
It got a little steamy.
Yeah, I don't know what's
because
what's
Jochum
that
started talking.
We're
dude.
dropping the
We're
dropping the heat on the mics right now.
There's a lot of heat coming through our veins.
I know it's so bad that you want to go for 3 hours, Jochum, and we owe you that, honestly.
The Rogan style.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we've been taught to hone in and get to the meat of it a little bit faster as of recent, and I think that actually has helped our podcast.
It definitely has helped our podcast for sure.
Yeah.
So one question that I have is what's a source of knowledge that you are tapping into frequently that people would look at and be like, Jesus, that's really insane. Like I'm concerned for you. Like Animal House, like Jack Burke texted me like, Jochum just picked up Animal House. What an idiot type thing. Like, and so is there a podcast? Is there something that you do? What's something that's super unique, that's very outlandish that you're tapping into as a source of knowledge?
I think the listeners, if you're looking for a book, it would be Awareness. It's the name of the book is Awareness.
Okay.
And most people reading that would be like, what the fuck? Like, it's all about dropping everything, dropping every single connection to every single person. So you don't need them. And that's something that I think I've been kind of emphasizing in my life is, again, it goes back to going without people like that's a big thing. Most people are not all right with being alone. Can you be alone with your thoughts, with your brain, without your phone, without a roommate? And that whole book emphasizes, and I've always kind of had that mindset of like, all right, I'm a little bit more of an introvert in that sense. So it was all right with me, but being all right with that and embracing that. And most people reading the book Awareness would be like, what the fuck is this? But I challenge people listening to check out that book, read it, and give it a chance.
Love it. And then another final question for you. What are you excited about that you want to document right now here in the final hour of this podcast that you'll be stoked to hear down the line?
Life. I mean, there's like,
Nice.
we opened the gym, man. Like that's the tree and building that foundation and showing. Like the other day, I showed up. Our session starts at 5:30, and guys were in there at like 5:20, and half of the turf space people were playing spike ball. Half the turf space people were using like, I guess, a quarter. Were using like wall ball. A quarter they were playing soccer, and another quarter they were just like messing around and having a conversation. And like I got to walk in and look at that, and none of those people would have ever talked to each other, would have ever met each other without like the community that we were building. It's all from different schools, different sports, everything. And I walk in and they're all just hanging out together. And that was one of the coolest things for me that I've ever seen. I was like, that's a community. That's what you guys are building, the community. And seeing that, it was super powerful. And that's what I'm excited for. Doing more of that, bringing more people into that space. It just blows my mind. It's like, would it never happen? There's so many universes, again, that never happens. There's so many ways that could go wrong, that person never met each other. And now they're like best friends at this gym and they spend 2 hours every single day together. That's what I'm excited for, building that out.
What kind of log cabin are you going to build with the wood that you've been chopping?
I'm going to Cali. So there is no log cabins in Cali, I don't think. So I'm going to go there. I'm going to be a beach bum.
I like it. Because you went to San Diego not too long ago just to hang out,
Yeah.
right? How's that?
Amazing. That was after reading the book Awareness, and it was all about, again, being alone, taking that solo trip, next level. It was a game changer.
So you're gonna build a gym in California. That's where you want to go.
Or just have the Mecca here and just beach bum in Cali. That's the goal.
Mm.
Wow.
Or in Mars. Either one will work.
No, but I like the homestay. That rocks. I think that perspective is that's exactly what we're after as well. I mean, you could do this anywhere, right? We could do this in San Diego. We could do this in Austin. We could do this in New York. But why? Why would we leave what we're building here?
Yeah, the Mecca.
The Mecca.
Yep.
The Mecca. The Mecca. I'm gonna keep saying it.
It's kind of nice.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice going outside the Mecca.
Right. It's nice to
You
go
learn.
outside.
You learn a lot.
Yeah.
You return
just-
to the Mecca, but
You return.
you're
yeah.
free.
It's what we were talking about earlier. You know, you have your tribes. You got to have new tribes. You have to learn.
It's,
What are they doing over there in that tribe? What's going on over there?
couldn't tell you.
That's exactly what you're doing in a farmland in Arizona.
Yeah.
What are they doing over there? You know, like you're learning.
I'm learning a lot. It's the coolest thing. I love it. I think it's fun to be outside your. It's fun to be away from the Mecca. Put it that way. I'm learning way more than I ever have in my life about myself too. Living in the RV by myself before my sweet girlfriend moved in. That was some of the most like my mind was growing. Like I can just looking back at those times, it was so unique, and I would recommend that to every single person to do something like that.
Be alone, embrace it. That's
Exactly.
There's something I can recommend to almost every single person. It's that because when you're alone, you don't like it, and so you avoid it at all costs. You're alone for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever it is. You watch your brain and watch your body find every single possibility to get out of that being alone. Get out. You'll text somebody. You'll call somebody. You'll be like, I'm gonna watch TV because there's other people on TV. You're watching that. It's disconnecting from that. Be alone and feel that. Like, what are you feeling? What's going on in your brain? Embrace that and watch how powerful that is for when you're with people the next time. How much more energy you can bring. How much more you know yourself. So when you're understanding their story and you're hearing their story, you have a story. Like you understand where they're coming from and going to, and you can talk to them about that. But if there's one thing, like be alone and embrace that.
Say that quote you started with one more time. It was the be without so that you can be with or something like that.
Oh yeah. Go without so you can go within.
I got to hold on to that one.
That rocks.
That one rocks.
I think we'll end it there, man.
Well, thanks for having me on, guys. This is awesome.
Yeah, Austin. Thank you so much, man. It's honestly my favorite thing having you on the podcast. From the moment that we kickstarted season 3.
Yeah, that was a while ago, man.
Yes.
Bringing you on for that first time was just iconic because we had no idea the energy you were going to bring.
Well, I was gone for a while before that, too. I was in St. Olaf and hadn't seen you guys in like a year almost.
That's right.
Right.
I think we had just opened the first gym.
Yes.
I think that's right.
That's why we had you on here, dude.
That's crazy.
Amen. All right, boys. Let's
Love you,
wrap it
man.
up.
Boom.
Love you.
Love you.